Right.
Howdy.
I think we are actually live. We'll wait to see if we get a response, or hopefully when we get a response in the chat group. So if you can see us, guys, start madly typing away and tell us that that you can see us.
Yeah, I think they got us.
Oh, here we are. Yeah, I'll take that as a sign.
Yep.
Actually, let's move this up here.
Up there.
So that way, kind of looks like we're looking straight ahead.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's such a big screen that your eyes move quite noticeably around when you're not looking.
How you doing, guys? Oh, you guys are going all nuts. Good to... first of all, well, there's now 69. How appropriate. There's quite a few of you guys that were patiently waiting. Like, I don't know, 45 minutes beforehand, we had 24 people waiting. And that's actually kind of humbling that you guys will basically sit there and waste your day waiting for stupid old me to ramble on about useless stuff. So I really do appreciate...
They're waiting for me.
Yeah, well, that's true. They're waiting for him. I do appreciate your time, and I see that there's more people coming in, and just letting you guys get yourself settled. So I think probably a lot of you are on here because of the Facebook posts that I've put out saying about this, and then there'll be some of you that are subscribed to me that maybe got a notification or just checking things out. But the title of this live stream is Depression and FPV. I'm going to try and keep this reasonably upbeat, but the goal of this is really to talk about something that we don't talk about enough. And I think to get the topic out there so that other people will talk about it, because realistically talking about it is the best thing that we can do to fix this. And I've got a reason to talk about this, but what I also wanted to do was to bring on other people I know around me that have also got a reason to talk about this. So I'll introduce them soon enough, but also note that not all the guys are here. So this is kind of like a last minute thing. It's sort of a test to see how this works. I've got some future plans for this, which I want to talk about at a later stage. But yeah, we've got some other high-profile pilots and other well-known people to come on. And realistically, what I'm trying to achieve here is to prove to you guys that you're not the only ones out there that are possibly suffering from this. There are...
You're having a good time there.
Let's just wait for David to finish doing his thing.
My dog, I'm sorry.
All right, so David's going to be the comedic relief every once in a while, and blame it on his dog.
Blame the dog. Blame the dog.
So
look.
Hey, puppy.
I think my dog's more famous than I am.
Essentially, look, what I'm trying to achieve here is
I think it's communication and awareness more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm trying to communicate this because I think a lot of people think that it's only them that are suffering from this issue.
Yeah.
And look, the people in the FPV community, the better known pilots, they're not massive celebrities. I don't consider myself a massive celebrity, but I also know other people out there that probably are bigger pilots than me. And once again, not massive celebrities compared to the like a movie stars, but I know there's a lot of you guys out there that really do idolize some of the big pilots out there. And my aim really is to show you guys that other people suffer this stuff too. And if we talk about it and we work out ways to get through it, then we can go on from there. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. And just as I'm saying that, we've got ourselves another guest. So we're going to have a couple more guys hopefully pop in as we go through the night, because I've invited some guys on and there's various guys that are busy. So they might pop in, and as they pop in, we'll introduce them. Some of them you guys will already know. And my aim really is for each of us to have a little bit of a talk about some of the issues that we've had through our own personal lives, and how we dealt with it, and maybe if we can give other people tools just simply by talking about it, how to fix the situation, or at least help them. So at the end of the day, if we have one more person that one single person that we help, then this whole thing here is a complete winner. So it looks like we've got everyone except for the last person here, and he's probably going to be fairly late. He's usually late, so that's normally like him. That's so I'll introduce him properly when he gets here. But I've got Jonathan Davis, or Schizo, coming in as well. I know Jonathan has had issues with depression quite a lot, and had a nice talk with him this morning, actually, when I went out for a nice morning run and so forth. So, but what I will do is I will go around and I will introduce everyone in case people don't know who's already here, and we can go from there. So to start off with, hi, my name is Chad, and I'm better known for flying stupid little toys around and acting like an idiot in front of a camera and smiling a lot and trying to make you guys laugh. But I have for a very long time suffered from depression, or various forms of depression, and have used that the stupid comedic outlet, I guess, as a way to outlet it rather than actually trying to address the problems. Next to me is my good friend Mark, and Mark actually was the first guy that I ever went to fly drones with. He was the first guy I ever met in Brisbane flying drones. Yeah, that's right. And we've been really good friends ever since. And yeah, and then next along we've got on us in terms of Windows, we've got Mr. David Skadoosh Andrews, all the way from China, and David, yeah, you're a similar guy to a lot of us. I'll let you guys tell your story and so forth. You can't half tell David's in China. Next along we have and Mr. HM Joseph, if you want to turn your microphone off for a second and just say hi to us all.
Hey guys, how are you? I go by JDC FPV or HM Joseph on Facebook or whatever, but I appreciate you inviting me here, Chad.
Yeah. And yeah, we've known each other for quite a while, and we've done a couple of 24-hour live streams together, and we've had a couple of interesting heart-to-heart talks, and that's why I brought you on here. And last down the line, we've got someone who's pretty well known. He's the man with the perfect haircut and the glasses. And that'll be Chad Kappa. So everyone knows Chad Kappa pretty well. He's the guy that started Flight Test. He's the guy that started Rotor Riot. He was always the guy with the positive reinforcement and trying to do the right thing in front of everyone. But once again, I've had heart-to-hearts with Chad Kappa, and he's another guy that has suffered from depression, and I certainly have learnt a lot over the time of how to deal with certain things during car rides with Chad, talking about stuff, talking about feelings and things like that. So thanks very much for coming on, Chad.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So look, we've all got a story here to say, and I really don't want to take the limelight here, so I'd rather go last if I could. That way, most people who are bored by the time they get to the end and they're not listening to my story. But let's go from where we ended, and we'll go through to me. So, Chad, stick that microphone of yours back on again. You come across as an extremely positive, driven, caring, giving sort of guy to the general public. That's my perception of you, of what the general public sees. And that's the kind of that's the way that I feel. Being someone who's been around you a lot, that's the general sort of feeling that I get around you. So why don't you tell us your story, so to speak? Try and give us a quick compressed story of Chad Kappa, the Chad Kappa that we don't know about, the Chad Kappa that's needed to struggle with things.
Well, I don't typically keep my stuff a secret, but I only talk about it when asked. And, you know, people have never really asked me about depression because they just assume that I've not had to deal with it. But I have definitely had some pretty serious bouts, and I've been on medication on and off, and currently I'm not, and I've learned to manage without it. And that's only been probably over the past 3 years or so. And it's definitely hard. But if you want to go back, I don't know, what do you want to hear? You want to hear a little bit of my history?
Yeah, well, I guess a quick history of about how it happened and your low point, what changed it for you, how you got out of it. I mean, we could go on for hours, and there's plenty of other times that we can do this. But I mean, a quick roundabout. I mean, everyone's got a reason for why they get into depression. There's always a reason, but there's always a catalyst too about why you wanted to change. And then how did you go about changing? I think that's what I want people to be able to talk about this, but also learn from one another.
I'm not sure there always is a reason, by the way. We'll get into that.
What's that?
I'm not sure there always is a specific reason.
Well, I think there's I guess if you want to start with two categories, chemical and I guess what's the other?
Situational, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So and I don't know. I think it's hard. I think there's a lot still unknown about depression. And I always equate it to or compare it to athlete's foot, because you never get rid of it and it flares up from time to time, and it's usually the worst possible time. So, but so there's not like a defining moment. It's not like, oh, here's where it was at its worst. It's like, I can tell you multiple worst times and I don't know which one's worse. But typically, let me tell you probably the biggest turning point where I really took it seriously. And this was probably about 2005-ish. Forgive me, I don't remember the date exactly, but I remember what happened. I got home, from work, and I had let the dog out, and he had done something and it made me angry, and I kicked him. And when I saw him, I get choked up just thinking about it. When I saw him limping from me kicking him, that was like a huge baseball bat to the head. I mean, figuratively. And I thought, I don't ever want to be that person. And so that was the biggest turning point for me. And from that point, I said, I'm not gonna be like this. And that was the first time I got on medication, and it turned my world around. I mean, I felt like I went from, the bottom of the barrel to the top of the world. And it was great, but it comes at a cost. Like that medication took away my creativity, and my whole business was built around creativity. So it was tough. Like, do I, maintain a stable attitude and, perform less in my profession, or do I, what do I do? So I went off of the meds eventually, and only this time I had a little more knowledge of what was going on. I knew something was wrong. I knew I wasn't quite, wired like, I don't know, like I thought I should be. So just having that knowledge and just knowing that, it's when I feel like that, there's something wrong. It's not that I should justify it. And I think that's the biggest, what do I want to say? Like, that's the worst part about depression is you think it's everyone else, because you'll have your morning will be fine. Everything's going great. And then your wife opens her mouth and, and everything's horrible. And you think it had to have been her. And guess what? It's not. It's not her. It's not your son. It's not your friend. It's not your mom.
Yep.
It's none of that. It's you, and you're seeing it that way. And you can't explain that to anyone. You can explain it to other people that struggle with it, but they have to have a point of context. I've had many conversations with Chad where I recognize these reactions, but Chad, and I don't know how many of these you remember, but you didn't have that context to see the difference. And so I would try to explain, but I don't, and no offense, but you weren't getting it. And I think you're starting to see it now.
The person is only going to listen if they want to listen. They need to make that choice. And at that point in time, I didn't want to listen. So you could have been chucking gold coins at me and it wouldn't have made any difference. That's the difference. Right. And I've been in the opposite situation. I know someone who is badly suffering from depression that I care about, and I do the same thing. I try to offer them the real, hard, honest advice, and it gets thrown back at me. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting because you don't see that when you're in that state, and you've got to recognize it and you've got to own it.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. How do you get somebody to own it? And the answer is you can't. They have to get to that point. And, and I shared this with you the other day, Chad. I knew, when I met you after we met the first time in Hawaii, I was like, this guy is pretty insane. He's like a 9, 10 on the excitability and awesome attitude scale. I'm like, okay, there's a flip side to that. And I knew, at some point that flip side would come, because I haven't met anyone like that. I haven't met anybody that has highs like that and can bring that much joy to a room has a flip side. Like, I've not met that person yet and gotten to know them and not seen that other side. Now the question is are they aware of it? Are they, how do they deal with it? I don't know, but
find out in time.
Yeah. And so in my mind, I thought, whatever it is, I'm dedicated to this guy and I'm just going to stick it out because that's what he's going to need. If he burns some bridges, he's going to need one. He's going to need one to walk back over. And I thought, and I know you probably think I'm crazy, but long ago I thought this. I thought I'm going to have to be that one. Not that I would be the only one. I think your parents are very strong, and but yeah, so that's my little contribution to this realm of depression, because there's no easy answer, and I think it's hard. So if you want to get involved, and if anybody's listening, I don't know who's on here, who's listening, but if you want to help somebody with depression, you have to be the rock. That's it. Like, you can't change them. You can't pound it into their heads. You can't. You can encourage them to get help, but even that in itself oftentimes pushes them away.
I wrote something down this morning. Where is it? When you are down, those around you suffer it twice as much as you, because they can't actually do anything about it.
Yeah, I would up the times.
Yeah. Well, particularly as it goes on. But yeah, that's we've already spoken about this, and I don't need it doesn't need to be a big sob story where everyone hugs and all that sort of stuff. But as I said to you before, Kappa, you have never actually given up on me. Like I said, I had that screenshot when we first met where you said, "I will never fire you." And I kept that screenshot just in case you turned into a complete asshole. And So
mentioned
yeah,
accounting.
I've said it in private, and I will say it in public. Thank you for being a friend in the good ways and the necessary bad ways as well. So I appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome.
Yeah. Oh, not to change the subject too much, but we've got a new guest on here. And so we may as well introduce him while he's here. He's busy spinning around being a lunatic. And
That's
this is the one and only Jonathan Davis.
Hello. Hello.
How you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Just
Yeah,
trying to eat dinner in between podcasts.
Oh, look out. There's a pretty lady behind you as well.
Where is she at?
Oh, there's a dog as well.
Whoa, now.
Anyway,
What did I
Jonathan, basically what we are trying to do at the moment is we're just going around and we're talking to each of the people to give a little bit of a wrap-up, a roundabout story of, first of all, how they suffered depression, what caused it, what was the catalyst that they decided that they wanted to fix it, and how did they attack fixing it, and trying to compress it down into a reasonably short sort of waffling on, just so that we're basically talking about it. So I'll let you sit here and listen in on all this wonderful stuff. And
Yes.
Mr.
My Indian food while this happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can scoff down your Indian food, my friend. But Mr. H.M. Joseph, GDSE FPV. So you're next, my friend.
He muted himself.
How about you give us a little bit of a talk about yourself, maybe a bit of a backstory about yourself, and what you went through. It's kind of like what Kappa was saying.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin, really. I've been fighting depression pretty much all my life. You know, it's just been something that's haunted me. And one year I was sitting talking to my brother, and we were discussing drones, and we were really interested in getting into it. And I was really down, so I was looking for a distraction. I was looking for something to kind of pull me out of those winter blues, and it was pretty bad. I was not associating with people, pretty much really distant in general. So I was pretty much antisocial, just because I didn't want to be around people. You know, it wasn't like I was just mad at society or whatever, but I didn't really have a drive. So we got started with drones, and I remember my brother got a build your own racer, and it was actually from Flight Test. So I was really intrigued by it, and we'd been watching Rotor Riot episodes and been following you guys, so he ordered the Versacopter, I believe it is what he got, and I got some janky Banggood special, but it came with some 5.8G video, so it really intrigued me, and it came with a screen on the controller, so I was like, okay, this is really cool. And then we kind of researched more and found out about, you know, goggles and everything else, and I tore the screen off the controller and made my own box goggles and was really into it. And I ran into Chad, and I kind of reached out and I was like, hey, you know, you're somebody that's inspired me to fly. You know, I just want to thank you, and that's where we started talking, and it just kind of went from there. I met Chad Capper through Facebook as well, and you know, a bunch of other people, and there's a lot of really amazing people that kind of were just introduced into my life because of FPV and drones, and it took me from a really dark place to a point of normalcy, I guess I could say. You know, kind of brought some joy back into my life. So I was really happy to get flying and get to meet new people, and it kind of pulled me out of that antisocial part of it too. And I think that was the biggest part of it, is that, you know, I just didn't want to be around people, but this kind of changed it up, and and the personalities that I've met through this, like David, which I met through Chad through the 24-hour live stream, and a bunch of other really great guys. It really helped pull me out of that and bring me back to something that brings me some passion or some joy and gives me a thrill. Unless I crash, I mean that's the one time that I'm like, ugh. But I think everybody gets to that point. But it just it changed things, kind of. I've always been an adrenaline junkie, so FPV attracted me because it was fast speeds and it was interesting to be able to fly and do that without the personal risk of physical injury. Before that I had done a lot of different stupid stuff and rode motorcycles at breakneck speeds and 120 plus and just things for a thrill. But this kind of fills that void for me, so it got me interested in something new, and it's just kind of progressed from there. And I started with like I said, some Banggood special toy, and then I got really interested in the FPV community and started building actual racers, 5-inch racers. Yeah. And then this Christmas, my brother was really awesome and sent me a tiny whoop, and I'd swore that I was not going to fly a tiny whoop at all. I was like, no, I don't want those. First off, they can't handle the Kansas winds, which is, I'm going to tell you as a drone flyer, Kansas wind is no joke. It definitely, it is probably the windiest conditions you could fly.
That shit'll sweep you off to Oz.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's bad. And where I live, it's really flat land. So, I mean, I can see for miles, and with a crossfire setup, you could be gone cornfields away. But no, it's just it's brought a lot of excitement, a lot of cool people in my life, and it's brought my brother and I closer too. And like I said, he sent me this tiny whoop for Christmas. I got really into that now, and so I'm kind of thanking him and hating him in the same breath, because now I'm like, oh man, I could get some motors for my tiny whoop, or I could order some parts for my 5-inch. Yeah. It's that quandary now. So
tell me, I know you're saying that the whole mini quad thing is helping you, but specifically speaking, like when you're feeling down, like what are some steps that you take? Like it can't be just, I'm going to go out and fly. If you're feeling down, you're like, I don't even want to get out of bed. What do you tell yourself that convinces you to continue on?
Well, it's kind of funny. It's like certain days where I don't want to do anything. Sometimes I will just want to fly. I'll just plug in the tiny whoop and buzz around my house and drive my wife and kids nuts. But that kind of brings me out of it. But other days it's just knowing that I've got a project on the bench that I've got to finish, and I might as well tinker around with that instead of attacking something major in my life. I'll redirect it to that. But I think the biggest part is the people. It's like I can't get away from the FPV community if I tried. Now it's like I log on to anything in social media, and I've got FPV everywhere, and people that I've helped and people that have helped me, and just some, like I said, amazing personalities that they're every day in your face kind of situation. So it helps keep me from being that dark and gloomy antisocial personality. So just by that,
it's the community that you surround yourself with. It's the people.
Oh sure. Yeah, but that is a double-edged sword. That is a double-edged sword, because that community, in the same sense, if you're having a bad day, it could just tear you to pieces. And I think that's why the biggest reason that I've stuck it through is because of the people that are on this panel tonight, and the people that I've met through Rotor Riot, and through the 24-hour live stream that we did. It's the fact that there are people looking for the positivity, and they're looking for that better situation, because they're, you know, I think it's everybody's kind of looking for an escape from their everyday, you know, motions. So
everyone's got their own way of dealing with things, and it sounds like for you that the whole FPV thing really does seem to be the key for you, which is just great. And I think that's the thing we learned, that everyone's got their own catalyst, their own way of doing things, and you've got to find what works for you, which is the important thing.
I just had to force myself to be happy. You know, it's like they always tell you, you know, that you can't help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves.
Exactly.
And I got to a point where I was tired of being down in the dumps, you know, where I just didn't want to get up. I didn't want to do anything, didn't want to socialize. And, you know, when you get to that point where you're done, you're wiped, you've got to get to the point where you've got to say, okay, enough's enough. I've got to do something. I've got to be the catalyst. I've got to change that. I don't think that necessarily FPV itself was the catalyst. I think it was the decision in myself to make that choice, you know. And FPV was the outlet. So
well, I don't want to take the limelight here, but I kind of feel like I want to share my side of the story, and then David, you can jump in next. That's a little bit scary. Look,
I have so much to say, and you keep muting me.
Yeah, I know. All these crazy Chinese people keep on talking up.
I told them to be quiet now.
I'll shut up now. Oh, you meant in his background.
Same, but different. Oh no! Now I've turned racist. This is bad.
I had.
My story is simple but complicated, like most people would say about themselves. I have for a very long time suffered depression in some way, shape, or form, but either just pushed it off to one side or blamed other people for the problems, and done one of two things. I've either reacted or I've soaked it up, and to the point where I react anyway, but about 10 times worse than what I would have originally. I've never really been a person that's into heart-to-heart communication. I have at times with friends been good at listening, but I'm no good at talking myself. And it's very interesting when you look back at it now, where your faults and so forth. But my depression really first started happening. Like, I had bouts of it in high school, but it happened early on in my adult life when my girlfriend got pregnant, and at 24 I had a kid, and I was still living at home, and I had to move out into a rental property with a heavily pregnant woman. And that was the first time that I moved out of house, and had problems with, like, her not working, me not wanting to have kids, and basically having a dead-end job where I had to pay the bills, and of course bad communication within the relationship, and just doing stupid things meant that times got worse and worse and worse, and I got down, and I eventually got down to a point where my family said, you need to go and see a doctor. And this is going back maybe 10 years ago. Went to see a doctor, and the doctor put me on antidepressants, and they kind of worked. Similar to what Chad Kappa was saying, they worked, but they also stifled my creativity. I turned into a person where it was fixing some of the things that I liked, but also putting a lid on other things that I didn't. And after 3 or 4 months, I ended up stopped taking that medication, and tried to deal with it, but never really actively looked at a way to deal with it. And when I quit my job and started on this journey with Rotor Riot, I just assumed that it wasn't a problem. I assumed that it was all fixed because I'd got away from the crux of the problem. I broke up with that relationship, and I quit the job that I hated, and I went on this dream career of being a lunatic flying around the world having fun, not realizing, even though people like Chad Kappa are saying to me, it gets real, it's not always this fun, forgetting about that shit and not addressing the problem that life is real and life has got real problems that you've got to deal with. Combined with the fact that I didn't communicate with people, I found myself in a small hotel in China freaking out because I didn't know when I was going to next get paid or how I was going to pay my kids' school fees or which country I was going to be in next, because I was so used to having pay every week and the same thing happen over and over. I got thrust into this situation where everything was crazy and I just had to deal with it. And plenty of people have to put up with that stuff, but I just didn't deal with it all that well. And it got worse after, say, the second year of Rotor Riot, where things were not necessarily going according to plan, and I had my set morals, and I was the stubborn one that I wasn't gonna go below certain morals, and I used morals as an excuse and for everything, when really it was just, a lot of it was just an excuse. I'm proud of a lot of decisions that I made, but the way that I acted, not so much. And as time got harder and I stressed out more, I bottled it up even more, didn't talk to anyone, and pretty much anyone that would touch me, I would just explode. And I'm sure you guys watching this live feed here will have seen times like that where I've been online on Facebook and I've just blown up out of nothing for something stupid and gone and made enemies for no reason whatsoever. And I see that and recognize that now, how stupid it can be. And I've got people like Chad Kappa, I've got people like Mark telling me, dude, calm down. And once again, you're only going to hear these things if you want to hear them. If you don't want to hear them, they're bouncing off your back like it's water off a duck's back. And it slowly got worse to the point where I caved in. Every time I got home from work or from being away, I would literally spend 2 to 3 weeks just laying in bed, just being on Facebook and watching YouTube videos. And it got worse and worse. And more recently, when I've been home more often, I've been in my own bed, not showering, not doing anything, not giving a shit about my body, only getting out of bed to go down and get Kentucky Fried Chicken and go back and eat it and just sit back in bed and be depressed. When I've got people around me caring, like my parents and so forth, and every time they try and fix me, I just snap at them and treat them like shit. And I don't know why I was fine with that, because I was just like, oh, well, who cares? And I actually shared something with Chad Kappa the other day that I've never shared with anyone. And Chad Kappa got emotional when he said he kicked the dog. I have, for a very long time, I've had a plan to kill myself when I was 40 years old. And
yeah, it's one of those things I've been meaning to bring up with you.
Yeah. I've always joked about it to people, but
yeah, I know when people make jokes about things like that, they're not jokes. So that was part of what I wanted to talk to you about on the road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I had a heart-to-heart with Chad Kappa, it was nice to let that out and to admit that. But even through that, having that still wasn't enough for me to change. I'm still not at a stage that I really want to publicly talk about it because it's private business, but the catalyst for me was losing something very dear to me. And there's nothing like losing something that you care about to make you really step back and have a look at yourself and go, what the fuck are you doing? And that really was just that was a couple of days of freaking out and looking at things and trying to assess the situation. And I went through a week of getting 1 hour's sleep and having one mouthful of food, where I went from someone who would hyper focus on some things, where I would find a task, I'd get a video that I want to edit, and I'd do nothing but edit that video. I wouldn't eat, sleep, I wouldn't do anything. I'd hyper focus on that. And all of a sudden I changed around from someone who was hyper focusing to someone who couldn't concentrate on something for more than 30 seconds. And it freaked me out. I'd find myself walking around the house for 20 minutes, not doing anything, just trying to find something to do. And that was the catalyst. And I went, I couldn't think of what to do. And a good friend of me just said, take it one step at a time. I go, I don't mean. They said, bring it down, bring the step down simple. Bring it, don't look at the big plan. Make it simpler and simpler and simpler until it's something that you can do. And I was lying in bed and I looked at the roof and I went, no more. I said, I got to get out of bed. Even getting out of bed was a hard task to do. So I went, okay, cool. Let's simplify this more. Remove the fucking cover from your body. And I did that. Take your right foot out and put it on the fucking floor. Now the next one, now get out of bed and walk. Put some clothes on and just go walk somewhere. And that's literally how things started for me. And I've been slowly working on things from there, just taking things one at a time. And it's stupid shit. It's stuff that other people would say that doesn't mean anything. But just because it's not meaningful to them doesn't mean that it's meaningful. It's not meaningful to you. For example, anyone who knows me knows that I have shit fashion sense. I know Chad Kappa knows that I have shit fashion sense. He's been trying to get me a new look on Rotor Riot, and me being, no, this is me. You can't change me because you told me I had to be me on Rotor Riot, and I'm not going to change.
It's the FPV community.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone cares about shit fashion sense.
But it's a small thing. It's about confidence in oneself. And let's be real. I always say I don't care what I wear, but I've realized recently when I never went to shopping centers. The reason why I never went to shopping centers was because I was embarrassed with the way that I looked, because people go to shopping centers and they get dressed up.
Yeah, do they?
So I went out.
I have to wear shoes.
I went out, I asked for help, and I got a whole new wardrobe. I'm not going to tell you how much money I spent on new clothes, but it's embarrassing how much money I spent on new clothes.
It looks like new shoes.
And I went out. I bought ankle socks. I've got white shoes. I've got dress pants. And you know what? That made me feel really fucking good. At the end of the day, it's just clothes, but it gave me the confidence to go on to the next step. And the next step for me was owning what I fucked up, because I got some confidence to go, you know what? I feel good. The next step for me was to go, okay, cool. You feel good. Why did you feel bad? And I look back in my history and I started to realize, not just realize, but recognize and own the fact that there's plenty of times in life that I've fucked up. And it's easy for me because I'm a very public figure. So when someone's had a disagreement with me, it's out there. It's pretty public. They know about that. And I decided, once again, no more. I need to fix this stuff up. So I then went out and said, I got to look at all these situations and own when I've done wrong. And it doesn't mean that I've completely done wrong. There's always two sides of the story. But when I've been part of the problem, I need to own that. And I need to settle it so that it's settled. I can't always fix the problem, but I can settle it within my heart so that I can move along. So what I did was I went through history to look at who have I pissed off, what's this stuff. And I still haven't finished all this, but I went through various people and I started ringing them, not typing them, but contacting them and say, hey, I want to have a video chat. I want to see your face, or at the very least, I want to talk to you on the phone. And I had a nice, frank discussion, and the entire conversation was me owning the things that I did wrong and apologizing for it, and not expecting a reply, not expecting them to apologize. Just owning up for my side. What they want to do with their side is totally up to them. And that's what I've been spending the last couple of days doing. And I mean, I had a really long conversation with Chad Kappa recently. I mean, I respect Chad Kappa to death, but we've had a couple of big arguments, and I haven't respected him enough, and he's been supporting me even when he probably shouldn't have. And we had a nice long talk, and it was really good to be that honest. And I haven't done it yet because it's very hard to get in contact with them because they've blocked me. But to give you guys out there that are listening to this, I have reached out to people that can get in contact with Steele and Trappy. And I want to have a conversation with them and just end this feud and own the fact that I'm just as much to blame for any of this bullshit. If they don't want to, then that's fine. But that's my goal. I want to end all this stuff. So that's been one of my goals. The next goals that I've had is to be motivated, because I've had absolutely no motivation to do anything, and it's slowly gotten worse. And how do you get motivated? Well, once again, like, it sounds like I can't be motivated. I can't start small. Start small. You know what? I'm going to fucking change my jocks and socks today. That's what I'm going to do. Something stupid as that. I'm going to have a shower in the morning and the night. I was getting one of the reasons why I'm late to this live feed was because I got up, I had a shower, and I went, I need to be more active. And I went, cool, okay, what I'm doing myself, I'm promising myself, I'm going to run every single day if I can, minimum of 3 days a week. And I live on a dirty, great big hill, which is not easy. I could have taken the easy route. And I went, no, fuck it, let's take the hard part. Let's go down the hill. And I ran 4Ks today, and I intend to do that tomorrow morning, and I intend to do that the next day, because that's a challenge. And you know what? For the hour that I was running, I didn't worry about anything. I didn't care. I concentrated on running, and it really helped. And all I can say is someone who was stuck in bed, pissed off, biting back at anyone who tried to help, people like Mark who never really came and tried to change anything, I would just ignore him, and he'd come around and he'd say, hey, how you doing? And then leave, and then nothing would be fixed. I'm never going to be that person again. I know I'm going to slip backwards, but I'm never going to be that person again. To the point that if I'm on Facebook for more than 2 minutes, or if I watch more than, say, 3 YouTube videos in a row, I start to feel sick.
Digital detox.
Yeah,
I never came around and poked you that much because I knew that you wouldn't listen anyway. Yeah. It's not my job. My job was just to be there as a support, and that if you wanted to change, it would happen in due course.
Yeah,
you know, I can't shove you into.
But it's
stuff you don't want to do.
I think what the thing that we're getting here constantly is, for all of those people out there listening, the one thing that everyone is saying here, the only person that can change you is you. And you've got to find that catalyst moment, and you've got to find that reason to start doing it. And it can seem almost impossible, but it's not impossible, and it's not perfect. There is still so many complications. You're still going to have lots and lots of up and downhill battles. But as far as I'm concerned, making that actual decision to change and wanting to change is probably the hardest one. It's the easiest one, but it's the hardest one. Starting on that journey, because once you're on that journey, you're on it. And yeah, it's I want to help other people the best way that I can, because I know that it sucks being in that down state. You feel like a piece of shit. You don't care. All you look at is negative stuff, and you don't want to wait until you lose something special to you. You don't want to wait until you hurt an innocent dog. Think about that, because if you don't do anything, that's the direction that it's guaranteed to go. It's only going to go downhill until you decide that you want to go uphill. And The thing that is waiting for you at the bottom of that is death. Nobody wants that. You can tell yourself, I don't care anymore. I don't want to live. People who have committed suicide have told themselves that. I guarantee you they are regretting it. I am not a suicidal person, yet I had suicidal plans. And that's not right. You need to own that. You need to communicate it. And it just takes that first step. That's all it takes. Yeah. So I've done enough blabbing here. I've talked way too long.
Let's hear some other stories.
Yeah. Let's get Mr. Skadoosh on here, because I know you have a really cool story to tell. You've told me about your story, and we'll give you the time to share your story, David.
Well, that's where I'm going to start. Except for Schizo, Jonathan, this is the first time we've had a chance to be face to face, and that's a good thing. I know we've chatted through media, but we've never really. So peace to you, brother. As all the rest of you know on this panel, and Chad, you guys are personal friends of mine, and we spent time together. But as all the rest of you know on this panel, I'm very outspoken about my recovery. You know, my battle was with addiction and chemical abuse, chemical addiction, but it's hand in hand. It's the same thing. It goes down the same dark roads. You put yourself in the same dark places. Nobody can understand that prison that you put yourself in inside of your mind, and what a dark place you go in, except for other people that have been there. And the thing is it starts out so small. The seeds of it start out, you know, I'm an adult, I'm a man, I can handle this. And that's, you know, I can do this on my own. And we don't realize that there's other people out there that are thinking and feeling and doing and going through the same thing we do, because we feel, you know, the first thing is the sickness tries to isolate us. That's the first thing it does. And when we start doing that, I'm a man, I'm an adult, I can handle this, and then we start acting out little by little, and it starts pushing people away from us, and we start isolating more and more and more, and then all of a sudden we think it's the rest of the world, and you know, everybody's walking away from us. Chad hit a lot of the nails on the head. And you know, it creeps up on us. It creeps up on us. We see it coming, and we don't realize it's coming. And then once we're there, we don't know we're there, and nobody can tell us we're there. And we have to hit that bottom or that spot or that switch or whatever you want to call it. You know, I had a gun in my mouth 3 or 4 times and was too chicken to pull the trigger. You know, Chad, I'm going to tell you, when you called me this morning, I was fighting back tears. I was so happy to hear from you, and so happy to see your face.
Just
even though you were naked in bed and doing that dance thing you did for me.
to put this on context, David and I have been friends for quite a while, and I've met David personally over in China. But my stupid depression allowed me to have an argument with him and unfriend him on Facebook for the most ridiculous reason. And
yeah,
all it took was a call to say, look, I'm sorry I was a dick. Straight back again. I own up to things. But I'll shut up now. You keep talking.
Yeah, that's the other thing I would speak about. I have talked, I don't know now. And I could see you there, but I just couldn't reach you. You know what I mean? I could see where you were going, but, you know, like we all know, until you hit that spot, nobody can tell you. Yeah. And, you know, like for Chad, it was kicking the dog. For you, it was, you know, what you lost. For me, my huge moment of clarity, and this will bring tears to my eyes. I was so strung out and so sick one time. My brother every year has a Christmas get-together. And, you know, my brother and everybody had come over to pick us up, to take us out to the Christmas get-together. And I couldn't go. I was so dope sick and just so strung out that I couldn't go. So my kids went out there, and a few hours later, my brother came back by himself without my kids. And I said, "What's going on here?" And he said, "We're taking the kids, and you're going to have to get some help." And I'm like, "What's going on here?" Well, when we asked your daughter what she wanted for Christmas, she said she wanted her daddy back. And so that was one of the that was my kick in the pants. And the thing is once we reach that bottom, once we reach that spot, we can always find another bottom, but we gotta, you know, once we know we're there and we see that little crack of light, you got to run for that crack. You got to run for that little light,
once
you know, and start going up.
Once you've reached the bottom, you learn to swim, and you go, well, I could sink again, but I want to keep on swimming.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is it can be a gift, and in the beginning, it can be quite the roller coaster ride, because once you've been down that low, you know, because I've been in recovery for quite some years now. Once you've been down that low, you can know what it is to be happy. I think one of the biggest things is as we start to recover, you can't, the farther back you draw the bow, the higher the arrow flies. So once we've been that dark, we actually know what true happiness is. The other thing is awareness. Once we know we have the problem, once we can admit the problem and we can see the problem, when it starts sneaking up on us, and it does. I've been clean for many, many years, and there's days where I'll think, man, an ice cold beer would taste good right now. You know what I mean? But that's when I step back and laugh at myself. I'm aware of when my disease is flaring up. I'm aware of when things are sneaking up on me. And sometimes I just, you know, learning to laugh at myself was a huge thing. When something goes wrong, I don't have to freak out and throw the shit across the room. You know, I can just laugh at myself and just take it a little easier on myself and know, you know, that's the spot that I'm in. So awareness is huge. And the other thing is like everybody that is here has spoke about is being able to reach out to each other. And that's one of the reasons I do the same. When I fly back to America every year, I speak in the detoxes, I speak in the rehabs, I go back into the jail. And when I walk out of those places, I could, you know, it's so powerful for me to share my story with those guys. You know, it feels like I could jump over a skyscraper, you know. And it's not even, I don't care about a pat on the back or any of that shit, as everybody that knows me well knows. It's just, if one person that day hears me speak and doesn't get high that day, or doesn't overdose that day, or doesn't hurt somebody that day or whatever, then it's all worth it. It's all worth it. You know, we like to throw the rock in the pond to see the splash, but we don't see what the waves are eroding at the shore, you know?
That's what I like about you.
So yeah, anybody.
David's full of philosophy all the time.
Come on.
Hey, I gave you some good nuggets this morning.
You did.
And the thing is like Chad was saying in the beginning, it never really goes away, but it does get better. Yeah. It stops being such a roller coaster, and it starts to get a little more around here. Now, we never want to see that straight line, because that means you're dead. You always want the beep, 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 beep going. You know, we need that little bit of up and down. But, you know, I don't have to get low anymore, and I don't have to get high anymore. I think, and I'm not trying to say that I'm smarter than anybody, but I think guys with a more creative and out of the box style thinking, we're a lot harder on ourselves. You know, we end up being our own worst enemy when shit doesn't go right. There's nothing anybody else can say to me that is even close to how hard I am on myself when shit's not going right.
Yeah.
And that's, that's a huge part of it too. But this is such a huge thing, Chad, to be able to reach this many people, and anybody out there that wants to private message me, doesn't want to get on it, you know, they're not ready. Feel free, man. I'm all ears, and I'm there for you. I got no problems with that. PM me, whatever you got to do, because I've been down that road.
Yeah.
And I know how it feels.
Same here. I mean, if anybody that sees me in the community needs to talk, I mean, message me. It's not a big deal. I mean, there's days that you know, I can see that David's having a bad day, and I'll message him or Chad or any of them, and you know, just feel free. I mean, that's kind of
sometimes that's all you need, that reaching out for help.
Well, it's that community that saved me or helped me, you know.
We're such a proud species, particularly us. Particularly us guys, that we know better. We don't need to do it.
That's right.
We don't need to ask for help. We'll work out how to do it. I tell you what,
worse than asking for directions.
Yeah, there's nothing
That's
wrong.
The demon right there.
There's nothing wrong with asking for help, and it's the best choice most of the time. A bit of humility. Like, I'm not perfect. I need help with this, and I think as guys in general, we suck at it. I know I suck at it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was getting at is, you know, that's the seeds that gets us isolated in the first place is we go, I got this. I'm a man. I can handle this, blah, blah, blah. And that's the very beginning of the isolation that our sickness will take us to. Like right after I talked to you this morning, I shot a message to Chad Capper and I was like, bro, I just had the greatest conversation with Chad, and I'm behind him 100%. You know, and we just kind of went back and forth with that just for a second. He's like, "Yeah, me too."
Yeah.
You know, and that's nothing else needed to be said. You know what I mean? Because we all know that spot.
Yeah.
You know.
Once again, it comes down to communication. If you need to be able to communicate, and what I've learned over a reasonably short period of time is how much I've blocked out my family. My parents and my sister are both, they're all huge fans of mine and supportive of what I've achieved. And like, I've never really given my parents the time of day. And they're like the greatest parents you could ever have. And I remember that there was one day there where I just lost it, and I couldn't be by myself. So I went over to Dad and I gave him a hug. And he said, "That's the first time that you've hugged me since you were 6 years old." And it's humbling to hear that. And like my sister is one of my biggest fans, but through jealousy, I never really hung out with her because I consider her a very successful person. She's a barrister and she's got a wonderful family and a nice house. And I always secretly was jealous of that. So I never used to go to the family functions because I got sick and tired of seeing her success, that I had no success. And like, I never congratulated her on any of her achievements or anything like that. Yet when I did all this Rotor Riot stuff, particularly early on, she would be my biggest fan. And I just didn't see that. I was selfish enough not to see those small things that were the important stuff. So right my wrongs. I called her up and I'm like, "Hey, sis, let's hang out." And went around, had dinner with her, hung out with them. And I mean, I'm texting her like at least once a day now. I've got my sister back, and she's excited because she's got her brother back.
Family is really important.
Yeah. It's once again, it's these small things. You go, how many people go, "Oh, I don't like my sister. She's a bitch. Like, she's okay. I don't hate her, but I don't talk to her too much." You only get one set of family.
See, this kind of hits home.
Forgiveness is the double-edged sword. We have to look at our part in it. And like we talked about earlier, you know, forgiveness is for me. What the other person does with it, you know, that's on them. But I have to forgive you for me to let it go and for me to move on. And one of the hardest people ever to forgive for the things that get done is myself.
Yep.
No, that's the worst, that one. Forgiving yourself for stuff. Easy to forgive other people.
I've been writing down all these really interesting, inspiring quotes. I always hated people who wrote down these quotes, and now I've turned into
I need something to slap you.
Yeah. I don't even think I can find it. I'm sure I'll find it at some point in time.
There are some good ones out there.
Yeah, this was one that you actually said to me this morning, David. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I really like that one.
Inspiring others, I guess.
Yeah. So,
well, we lost Schizo.
Yeah, Schizo seems to have gone. He might be back. We'll see how we go.
But me, doesn't it?
Mark. So look, Mark's not this super well-known pilot, but Mark's sort of been my little rock in my reality check for a very long time, and I brought him on here partly because I'm in his house because my internet sucks, so I kind of have to. He has to be here by default, but he's also he's a smart dude and good company, and he's got his own story. So Mark, why don't you finish this up and tell us your little story?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of interesting points that have been coming up. I never ever post anything personal on any sort of social media, so people might be surprised, but yeah, I've struggled with this depression and shit for pretty much my entire adult life. Sort of came on towards the end of high school, never really went away, and I didn't really acknowledge it as a problem until probably my early 30s. I always figured it was something I could blame on the situation that I was in or the people that I were around, be it bad relationship, be it something going wrong at work, being whatever, I'm miserable because of blah. And it took a very long time before I realized that actually, I would blame it on something and then I would remove that thing from my life, and I'd still be depressed. So after a while, I had to kind of admit that actually I did have a bit of an issue. I've never been medicated. I have strong feelings about medicating, and I think it's a very good thing to get people through difficult phases, and certain conditions absolutely warrant it. For me, it was never appropriate, and I think it's something that's often dished out a bit too readily these days. But the very difficult thing with this disease is that it's not something that you can just cure. You have to work at it. It has to be constant. We've touched on this already a few times. I've managed to come up with a whole bunch of coping strategies, and I have good days and bad days like everybody else, and I'm very good at hiding it. So the person that I project is quite often not the person that I'm feeling inside, which I think a lot of people can relate to.
Would you agree that hiding it is probably sometimes the worst thing you can do?
Sometimes it is, absolutely. Sometimes if you are trying to manage your own mood and you're trying to kick yourself out of a mood, and you're actually able to distract yourself, stepping into a different persona for a time will actually then drag your mood out, and you can actually fix it that way as well. Overall, hiding it and not communicating about it is a terrible idea, though. You have to do that, and you have to be vulnerable. You have to allow yourself to sort of put yourself out there with the people that you love, and not be too self-conscious. Like most of us here, I'm very hard on myself. We're all our own worst critics. So you have to be able to get over that. Getting to know myself over the years has been an enormous help. So you can reflect too much, you can ruminate too much with depression. It can be counterproductive and it can spiral you. But you have to understand, getting to know your own brain is quite important, and it helps you understand other people much, much better if you can understand your own emotional states and manage them. So, for example, it was talked about earlier a couple of times, people realizing that the problem wasn't the rest of the world, the problem was them. And I didn't have any real moments of epiphany, but I went through a phase where I was working in a job where I was very unhappy with the job. I was earning enormous amounts of money. It's the only reason I could stand doing it, and it was part-time. But I would get to work and I would be absolutely furious inside, you know, being nice to everyone on the outside, but actually inside I was extremely cranky, extremely aggressive feeling. And I had this realization at one stage that it wasn't everybody else. It's such a simple thing, but when you have that moment when you realize that it's not the rest of the world, it's me, it actually changes a lot of things. And if you can remind yourself of that when you're having those days, it helps you to get through a lot of that stuff. I think anger and aggression is tied to depression because, for me at least, it's a frustration thing. I'm having a really bad day and there's no logical reason for it. It frustrates the hell out of me and I get really pissed off.
Happy people don't argue about ESCs on Facebook.
Oh, sometimes
it's that simple.
Sometimes they do, but I'll be walking along at lunch at work. It's a beautiful day. The weather's stunning. I have absolutely no reason to be in a bad mood, and yet I'm feeling like, you know, zero energy, verge of tears, and you just get so angry and frustrated with the fact that you're actually feeling that way on a day like that. It just, you know, it really pisses me off. So learning to recognize those moods and work around them in your day has helped me a lot. There were some other points that I was going to make. I knew I should have written notes. I'm not very spontaneous when it comes to speaking. I write much better than I can speak, but I had a lot of things to say because there was a lot of cool stuff that was brought up by everyone. I think
Mark, let me interject for a second and give you a second to think about your next point, because Chad has touched on this a couple of times, and it's been a kind of running theme through our communication. You know, Chad, you think that you know, me not being I guess proactively communicative about my depression is hiding it. And like I said, I don't hide anything if people ask, but I close the door when I go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know.
No. I didn't mean that you were hiding it. I was talking about like Mark not the way that Mark was talking, it sounded like he wasn't dealing with it. He was just sort of pushing it to one side.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. Everybody deals with it a little differently. And sometimes from an outside perspective, it looks like they're hiding it. And what we're doing is just coping the best we can with it. Yeah. And, you know, and I kind of joke about the bathroom, but I'm serious. Like, you know, everybody knows you go to the bathroom. If you ask me if I poop, I will tell you yes, but I'm not going to share it with you unless there's some kind of value there. Yeah. So, you know, and I think this is a case where there's a lot of value in sharing it. Not my poop, but
I possibly think there's a difference between hiding it when you haven't accepted what your problem is, and hiding it when you know what the problem is, you've accepted it, you're dealing with it, and that's one of the ways that you can successfully deal with it. Yeah. I guess that's probably the difference there.
Good point. So I gathered some thoughts. I was just going to talk a bit about some of the other things that have helped me cope over the years, and there's some universal stuff. One of the things, and it's come up in the chat a couple of times, is exercise. You must exercise, and you must try and do it every day. It has an enormous benefit for your body and for your brain as well. One of the things that's saved me over the years has been martial arts. I really love Taekwondo. I've been doing for a long time. Martial arts for me is more than just exercise. Training is physically demanding and makes you sweat, but it's also mentally demanding, and it also forces you to focus on what you're doing for that period of time while you're training. You can go for a run and you can still be ruminating. You can go for a bike ride, still be ruminating and still be spiraling in your head. If you find yourself an activity which you can do, which is physical and also gets you out of that headspace and forces you to focus, that's incredibly beneficial. And the other thing that it is tied to is the concept of the flow state. And I think that the word flow gets thrown around in FPV quite a lot. And it's quite interesting because I don't know if everybody out there really understands exactly what the concept is and what it means. But my understanding is that it's a mental state where you're just connected to what you're doing in a way that you're not having to consciously think about what you're doing. You're just doing it. It doesn't go through the verbalizing or the conscious thought part of your brain. And FPV does it for me. Music does it for me. Martial arts does it for me sometimes when you're sparring and things like that. So
that might, I do think that was some of my big issues, that FPV did do it for me, but then also became the catalyst for the problem.
Yeah.
So my release also became the problem.
Yeah.
And I tried to fix the problem by getting a release, which was the problem, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And then I even said to myself, I remember at one point in time, I said, well, what I'll do is I just won't do it as much. So I won't hit myself on the head as much, and that'll feel better.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that like I hate flying, but I just had to realize what the issue was and try and separate them and be smart about that. And for me, it got so bad that I had to just go, you know what, I can't fly anymore. I need to put this away. And I haven't flown for quite a while, but I'm actually getting interested in going and flying again because I managed to separate it and find out what the problem was and fix it. Then I can bring it back in again.
Something else just...
Yeah, finding that balance is key for sure. Like when I first got clean years ago, you know, physical exercise was like a huge thing was recommended because it releases endorphins and dopamine and all that stuff that makes us happy. And so I was in the gym it was about 3 years into it when a guy walked up to me in the gym and said, "Hey man, are you going to compete in next month's Mr. Sarasota?" And I'm like, "What?" He said, "I see you in here all the time. You're freaking huge." And that's when it dawned on me, well, holy shit, I'm doing the same thing with this as I was doing with my addiction. I'm pushing everybody away and spending all my fucking time in the gym. So, you know, we got to find that balance, you know. And FPV, when I found FPV, you know, a couple years ago here in China, that's just huge for me because I think like a lot of us, we have such an overactive brain, you know, and especially like the business I'm in and stuff like that. I mean, my mind goes 100 miles an hour. I can't focus on I have the attention span of a goldfish. And like the only time that all that goes away is when I'm under those goggles for those, you know, 3-5 minutes at a shot. And just I'm focused on that, and everything else just kind of goes away, you know. And it changed my, you know. I go down the street now and I look at things to fly and places to fly where before I was just going down the road, you know. So FPV has been a huge part of the release for me. But like Chad was saying, that it can also be the catalyst, you know. Like I said, I started exercising, and the next thing I know, I'm freaking boom, and the guy's asking me if I'm going to compete in a bodybuilding contest. Wait, how did I get here?
Yeah, I think it's that double-edged sword that gets me sometimes because I'll get on and start going through Rotor Riot and other groups and whatever. And if I'm in a bad mood, I know that I've got to stick away from certain posts because otherwise I'll just kind of lash out.
Get off the internet. Get off the internet in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fly with people that you get along with in the physical world, and that part of that, you're in flow state while you're flying, but you're also socializing, you're hanging out with your mates, you're having a laugh, you're forgetting about all the other shit, and you're just talking, you know, we have our own language and our own in-jokes, and that's part of a group. Being included like that is massive thing. If you're depressed and you're included, find your little clique. Find your good people. It doesn't matter who they are. Just find your people and fly with those guys and ignore all.
It levels the playing field. You know, we're all there for one thing. It doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with like what we're talking about right now with the depression and the disease and stuff like that. When we all start talking about that and we're all in the same position, it levels the playing field. There's no big I's and no little U's. There's no this guy's a doctor, this guy's a lawyer. It levels the playing field. Nobody's above anybody else. And I think it's the same thing with the FPV community. When you find your clique, there's no way in hell I would ever talk to Nowak on a with it.
Oh, exactly. He's a prick to fly with. That's the same in martial arts. You know, you have that context. It's like there's a graded system, and anyone who's a higher grade than you respect as a higher grade. It doesn't matter who has the most powerful job in the room or the greatest income or anything like that. It's it's a completely separate sort of thing, and you're in that other space.
But also, I find that, like, for example, for me, when I'm hanging out with the guys here in Brisbane, my original group, it's not FPV that is the reason why we're having a good time. It's the socializing. The FPV is an excuse to get like-minded people together. Like, I go out flying with those guys. I couldn't tell you a single thing about any flight that I did, but I could tell you all the funny jokes that Mark said that had us pissing ourselves with laughing and having a great time. And that's the important part of it. That's where it is. So, yeah, I kind of agree. If you're the internet is a terrible place to communicate, and that's our own fault, because we as a species have not yet learnt how to communicate properly and understand how to translate what people have said by spoken word only, because we are so used to talking face to face. So you've got not only what they're saying, but audio cues and visual cues, and there's all these nuances that you can understand sarcasm, which is a lot harder to understand through the internet. So if you combine that with people which are feeling down, then all of a sudden that's where all the arguments happen. And like I said, happy people don't argue.
Yeah, see,
I absolutely agree. And I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna make a prediction here. Maybe not in our lifetime, but I guarantee you within a couple generations, they're going to be addressing technology as a disease, as a social disorder.
Yeah, they're already doing that. Internet addiction in certain countries. It's already a thing. Don't you worry. But it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, but see, if it wasn't for the social aspect of the internet, I wouldn't have access to a lot of this. And the problem is, like you guys were talking about, you know, just unplug and go fly with your friends and whatever. Where I live, there isn't anybody that flies at all, except for like miles and miles away. So when I go fly, it's with my kids, you know, and it's that unplugging that kind of helps, you know.
That's your clique then.
Yeah. I mean, it's my clique is my kids, you know, and I'm actually looking forward to. I'm taking a trip here in about 3 days. I'm flying out, going to see my brother and getting to fly with him for the first time. Both of my brothers. For the first time since we started this venture 2.5 years ago. Yeah. And gonna be able to fly with a bunch of people that, you know, I've met from these groups and what have you. But, you know, I think that, you know, my biggest problem is that some days when I'm down and out and I go looking for that community, I run into some of those trolls that will, you know, post stuff on my YouTube like you suck or whatever. And I'm like, man, I just fly for fun. You know, I'm not here to be some pro. Well, I just know a lot about them.
Here's an interesting thing about this. And Chad Kappa, you are responsible for me thinking this way, because Chad Kappa is the kind of guy who, it doesn't matter who it is, sees the good in someone. Despite me being pissed off at him for that at some points in time, he always sees the good in it. So you say, here's this stupid fucking troll being an asshole. Now, what I say, and this is coming from Chad Kappa's mouth, looking at it from a rational point of view, there are no assholes in the world. What's that person going through to get them to the point that they want to be that mean to a random person like you?
That's empathy.
So and they're suffering something to get to that point.
Compassion for them.
I don't know.
So I guarantee it. I guarantee it. That it's that way. Like, you want to be mean to someone, you know it. You've been in that. You want to be that asshole to someone. You're being asshole to them purely because you're already in a bad mood.
You know, it's and it also.
I'm going to have to agree with you 100% there, because Chad Kappa has done that to me on several occasions.
But that's the whole thing, and this is what I'm like. In my little stupid little dream of trying to fix things and help people out, is not just these people that are being nice in the chat group here, but I haven't really been watching the chat group. I'm sure there's some trolls there, some people that don't like me or someone else on here that are being assholes on there. Yeah, I want this to help them as well, because they need just as much, and they deserve just as much help, because I'm looking at every single one of you. Every single one of you has done one of those asshole troll type comments at some point in time. Everyone's been that troll.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Everyone's done that. So it's one of those things. You can call them an asshole, but look in the mirror, buddy, because everyone has their down moments.
No, I'm not saying that I don't have my down moments. I'll openly admit to the fact that there's some times that I'll get on you know, the FPV community and somebody will just spark me just the right way, and I'll kind of throw a comment out there, and usually Chad Capper will catch me. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, you know, for the most part, like I do try to refrain from that, because I know that sometimes, you know, we can take out some of our frustrations on the wrong person, you know, and I try not to do that. But, you know, I mean, I do think that there are people genuinely out there just trying to make somebody else's day bad. And that's where you get those genuine trolls.
Most definitely, but there's a reason why they're trying to make those people's days bad, because they're having a bad day themselves. So I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that are trying to be assholes, but there's a reason for it. And they probably need just as much help as us that we're talking about here.
Probably, and you know, and it's like
once again, it's up to them to accept it. But all we can do is offer that help and see where we go. And
well, that's the thing, you know, you can throw a lifesaver to a drowning man, but it's up to them to grab it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to achieve here. I don't care who it is. I don't care what you've done. Everyone deserves a little bit of help. They've just got to be the ones to actually accept the help. That's what I'm trying to achieve here. And by hopefully getting some people on here that are better known or have been on live feeds, people like Chad Capper and people like Schizo, unfortunately, he's out of there. I'd like to get some more pilots, because as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of people out there that go, oh, I'm the only one that suffers this, because that's the way you feel. Now, if I can show you that there's someone that you look up to, that you idolize, that is going through the same shit, it's a little bit of perspective in your life to realize, well, I thought he had a perfect life and he's really fucking happy, but he's going through the same thing as me. So it levels it down, and it might be that little thing for you to open up to go, you know what? If he can achieve that, so can I. And that's really what I'm trying to achieve here. But
and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah. But
hey, Chad, real quick, I want to hear a little bit from Mark. I think he had something to say about other angry people out there, and I like what he has to say.
And I have talked over the top of you.
So you never do that. Well, I think that a lot of bad behavior, if not all bad behavior, stems from insecurity. I think I remember saying that to you a while ago, Chad, and you agreed with me. And it's one of those moments where we sort of looked at each other and went, being compassionate to those people is sometimes challenging. But when you understand, if you try and understand where another person's coming from, you try and figure out what's going on in that person's head, what's going on in that person's heart, it only improves the quality of the communication that you can have with that person, and it makes it much easier to reach them. And if you care about changing them and improving them and making them not act like an asshole, then that's the worthy goal, I suppose. I guess having my own realization that it wasn't the world, it was me, probably helped me become a lot more compassionate to other people who are being dicks as well. That said, I still don't like certain types of people, and I give them very short truck in my life. Bullies specifically, I have zero tolerance for, and if I run into those sorts of people, I'm not yet enlightened enough to deal with them in the most probably constructive way. I just don't like bullies. But bullies are bullies for particular reasons, and understanding them certainly helps.
Here's the thing. I don't like bullies, but I see bullies and I start bullying the bully. So I become the bully.
That's exactly what I'll
That's my problem.
Short shift. Yeah. It's like, oh, you like bullying other people, do you? Well.
Right.
Yeah, but somebody else started that.
Exactly. There's a reason. It all comes back to something.
I have to watch myself in situations like that because I'm naturally a fighter kind of personality. So when I see somebody getting picked on, I immediately try to step in and take that misdirect and take that on myself.
Yeah, but there's also a point in every confrontational situation where you always have a choice between escalating or de-escalating, and it's always going to work out better if you de-escalate. It's very satisfying and easy to escalate, and you have been a bit of an escalator in the past. I've seen that side of your personality, and it can be fun. And then you can walk away going, haha, I was right. But it doesn't necessarily solve the situation in a constructive way or stop it from happening again. So learning to de-escalate is a hell of a skill. We sort of strayed a bit from depression here, I guess, but it ties in with communication. It ties in with understanding, knowing yourself. And knowing yourself is a very, very important part of developing emotional intelligence, and because that's something that a lot of people in this FPV community might be lacking a little bit. There's a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. Some of them are extremely nerdy. Some of them are a little bit aspy or on the spectrum somewhere, as they say. Not everyone has highly developed skills when it comes to dealing with emotional behavior, and it's like any other skill. You can cultivate it and improve it. It's just like balance. Can't balance very well when you're a baby, and some adults can't balance very well when they start training martial arts class. After 2 years, they can balance a lot better. So I made it a project of mine many years ago because as a teenager, I was very intelligent and pretty naive, and emotional stuff was quite elusive to me. So I made it a little pet project during my life to just figure out some of this stuff and how to read people, how people tick. Learned a lot about myself along the way. And somehow I've turned into one of those rare nerds who actually has people skills. And I've worked with a lot of nerds in 20 years of IT, and I can tell you that they don't all have people skills. But it's something that you can work on. You know, it's just another skill. So you might be. Some people have natural aptitude to this stuff. Women are naturally more empathic than men, I find, and probably some men are naturally more empathic than FPV flying nerdy quadcopter type dudes. Yeah. But yeah, there's stuff you can improve all the time. So don't give up on other people. Don't give up on yourself. You hit on something. Keep learning.
Huge that you hit on something huge. I want to go back to, and it's the understanding thing. One of the things that I had to come to the realization is that everybody around me doesn't need to understand me. I need to have understanding for where they're at, and that's you know, I always took the stance of, can't you see how the problems that I have, and don't you understand what I'm going through? Well, that's not really, you know, I need to have more understanding for where they're at, not try to make them understand where I'm at, you know, kind of thing. That's another big thing with what we go through. It's like, we want to reach out, you know, when we, like Chad was saying, he covered his up with comedy, you know, and it can go both ways. We cover up with comedy or anger, or, you know, just acting out. And it's because we're calling out and we're wanting everybody to say, don't you understand where I'm at? But really, we need to understand where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's always a work in progress. It's always a work. I don't ever think I ever want to reach the point where I say, here I am, I'm through it, I made it. You know, at that point, I'm dead. If I'm not constantly moving forward and learning something, I wake up every morning and teach me something today. I want to learn something new today. That's the outlook that I have. I don't ever think I want to reach a point in my life where I'm here. I understand it all. Then it's time to die, right?
If you think you understand it all, it's clear that you don't.
There's not a single human being out there that's got it perfect, and every single human being suffers down points and high points. It's just a simple fact of life. Some people don't know how to deal with it as well. That's the difference. Like, it's not the fact of, oh, I suffer from depression. It's more a case of, I haven't been able to deal with life's issues probably as well as I could. And you tend to suffer some more. So you just need to work it out. Like, some people are equipped naturally to take those lows a bit better and to deal with them. Some people aren't. That's the way that I look at it. And everyone out there is suffering from something at some point in time. So just remember, when you see someone who is extremely happy or looks very successful and has a great life, just remember that they are either hiding something that they are currently going through, or they've gotten over something just recently. It's one of those things.
Most humans,
I think
fragile deep down and complicated, and the older you get, the more baggage you accumulate. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be nice, privileged, white, middle-classy people like us, or you could be some poor guy ploughing a rice paddy. You're still going to accumulate baggage, and you have to just understand everyone's carrying all this stuff all the time, and everyone's complicated, and we're all just still animals. We have this lovely veneer of intelligence on us, but deep down, we're not that evolved from where we were 100,000 years ago, and when we were running around whacking each other on the head with sticks and things. So
we're still doing that.
Yeah, well, we have this fantastic intelligence and ability to be rational, but on top of that, we have this massive emotional system which is wired in on a sort of really basic level, and things like greed and anger and all of these really strong emotions that are really fundamental things are wired into us on a very low level. And as a species, unless we can actually overcome, not get rid of those things, but understand them and know ourselves and understand how our brain is making us react and how our emotional system's making us react, and then acting appropriately and rationally based on that. I'm not saying suppress your emotions, but just process them. Once people figure that stuff out, human race is going to be a hell of a lot better off. But in general, we haven't. As individuals, it's something we all need to work on, and the more everyone works on it, the better everything's going to get in the world in general. Yeah, that's my how to cure the world's problems philosophy for today.
I think.
Hey guys,
go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, do we? There's the chat is quite active. If they're just kind of chatting and talking about this, do we want to open up for questions?
Yeah, we have that in our little. I made a little agenda which we vaguely struck.
Well, I did want to. I want to get these guys that we can talk about what these guys are talking about, and then once we've done a little bit of that, we can. I think all of us just have one quick little bit to say, maybe some just quick advice on things to do, and then wrap it up, because I don't want this to go for hours and hours and hours. And we can do some more of these if people want to hear more of this sort of stuff. But let's go through the chat.
24-hour?
No,
no, fuck that.
Good.
No.
My wife looked at me when I came in the room real quick before I got on here, and I said, I'm getting ready to do a live stream. And she looks at me. She had just woken up, and she says, "It's not another 24-hour, is it?" I was like, "No." She's like, "Oh, good. Tell Chad thank you." So, but I think I have a big problem with something that Mark touched on, the fact that with the ebbs and flows of life, my biggest problem is that the fact that I'll become too complacent and I'll become bored, and then I'll be self-destructive in my own sense because of that. Okay. I'll look for something wrong or a flaw or whatever, and it just I think idle hands are the devil's playground, so to speak, and that goes along with my mind. If I don't have something to preoccupy my mind, then I think that I'll have that downslope, and I think that's the biggest problem.
Can I cut in here a little bit? I'm just going through the comments here and I'm looking at stuff. We've got one guy on here, and I want to take him seriously. We've got Sailor Neptune on here is saying some quite negative things. And I want to assume that he's being for real on here. So
yeah, I wanted to go through some
so
just some things about where you can go to get help and what you should
type some stuff in there to talk to us that about your issues. You're obviously from what you're saying in a very down way. And this is why we're here sitting this talking about us, because we've got a group of people that have suffered this kind of thing in the past and gotten through it, because we want to show you that there are ways to get through it. And if there's something that you need to talk about, we're here for you.
Yeah, and it's important to talk. There's Beyond Blue in Australia.
Yeah.
I don't know what the US has, but there are counselling helplines and there are organisations out there. If you're seriously depressed, call these places, and they are professional counsellors and will talk to you about this stuff. And I can't stress how important that is, you know.
If you're in the United States, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it literally is, Sailor, we can't convince you of anything. We can only give you support. You're the one that needs to decide to take the step. And what you're talking about right now, it sounds like there's no hope, there's nothing there. If I could give you some advice where I'm sure if I sat down and spoke to you, whatever kind of fix I would give to you, it would be, it's not going to work, it's too hard, that's not possible, giving all of these things. I can only give to you what has worked for me, and everyone is different. But like I have said earlier, I don't think you saw that, was a friend said to me, simplify things. So, cool, okay, I got to make my life better. I can't do that. Okay, cool. Well, let's go back down, and I can only talk about me. So I got to make myself happy. I don't know how to do that. Well, why are you sad? I'm sad and I'm staying in bed all day. Okay, well, get out of bed. I don't want to get out of bed. It's too hard to get out of bed. Simplify it down. Take off the sheet. Take your right foot out. Put it on the ground. Keep on simplifying each action until it gets to a point where you can say, I can do that. And the next big thing is forget about the big picture, because the big picture is too scary when you look at it at first. Once you gain some confidence, the big picture is great to get yourself clarification. But simplify the steps down until you can no longer say, I can't do that, and do it. Because walking, you're going to walking forward. It doesn't matter which direction you're going. You're actually going forward. By standing there and doing nothing is achieving nothing. And trust me, I'm answering for you. You don't want to do that. Even if you've convinced yourself you do want to do that.
Yeah, one step at a time works for me really well. I find it hard to get out of bed a lot of days. And so you just make yourself get out of bed, and then you make yourself go to work, and then you make yourself just keep on going. And that's what we do. And you get through the day. And generally it's not so bad by the end of it.
Yesterday's worries very seldom bother me today.
Oh, yeah. Don't dwell on the past. You can't change the past. Learn from the past, but don't dwell on it.
It took me a long time to learn that there's only so much I have control over.
Yeah.
And when it's beyond my control, I just have to kind of accept the fact that outcome is out of my hands. And at that point, I can only do so much. And if I'm bringing the best me every day that I can be, and do what I need to do and put my best effort forth, then that's all that anybody could expect out of me. And I literally have to be happy or satisfied with that, because that's what I'm capable of. And if it doesn't work out or whatever, I mean, you just have to learn to accept that that's how fate works out.
Sailor, you just said I have so much illness and so much faults. Well, my girlfriends are so happy and perf. I guess you meant perfect. Here's a reality check. Your girlfriends aren't perfect. They're far from perfect. They're extremely flawed. They're having a shit time in their life. There's a lot of stuff going on in their life that you probably don't know about. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of understanding and convincing yourself that. I know, because I was the same thing with my sister. Perfect life. Meanwhile, they're going through problems where on my brother-in-law's side, his daughter's trying to commit suicide. And they're dealing with shit like that. And I don't even know it. I'm sitting there looking at their lovely house going, they're perfect. So don't think that you're having a shit time and they're having a perfect time. It's just a matter of going up. Here's one thing, a little bit. What I want you to do, and this is one thing that I did, was I want you to find something that reminds you of good times, not heartache or anything like that. Everyone's got something around them that reminds you of good times. I'm not talking about a car. I'm not talking about a house. Something that makes you smile. And everyone's got something, just something, a tiny little trinket, and keep it close to you. Keep it close to you, because every time you get down, you pull it out. And it doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. It only needs to make sense to you. Case in point, I carry my phone everywhere with me. These 2 tickets here take me into my happy place. They don't mean anything except to me and a few other people. But this makes me happy. And I keep them with me at all times. So do that. Everyone can find something. Because when you need a pick-me-up, you've got it right there.
You know, happiness can boil down to a choice. I can choose to sit in my misery and wallow in it like a pig in the mud, or I can choose to pick myself up and put a smile on my face. Like Ted just said, it's all in the perspective. I know that seems very far-fetched and very hard when you're down in a spot where, you know, you're on that edge. But I've been to that edge. And and the same thing, you know, everybody has issues. Everybody has problems. I get a lot of messages from people now, you know, oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you got, you know, your business going, you know, you're so happy. You're, you know, popular in the community, whatever, you know, like my wife says, you're such a popular nerd now. But what they don't realize is that when I got to get here, I was homeless. I was homeless at the time. I was broke. I had no job. And I crawled in and begged a friend of mine for temporary work with the company that I'm with now. You know, and I started there getting paid cash under the table, like $9 an hour, just so I could eat, just so I could. And all I had to do was just keep moving forward and keep moving forward. You know, it all has to start somewhere. But I have to choose not to be the pig wallowing in the mud and start climbing the ladder one step at a time.
I wrote down this morning, and this is directed at you, Sailor. It's hard to see it when you're in that place. It's so hard to see it because you have to decide it. But what did I write down? I said, stopping depression is actually very simple. It's exactly the same as a light switch. The problem is finding it. Everyone has their own light switch in their own location. So you've got to find that switch somewhere. And literally, the moment you find that switch and you decide to flick it, it changes so quickly. But it's just a matter of finding that switch. And
I don't know
right at the end of the tunnel is not the illusion the tunnel is.
Yeah. I don't know that it's that simple for everyone. I've been looking for that switch for a long time. There's not too many other places I can look. It's a whole bunch of little things for me.
You've got a lot of switches.
Exercise, I do. Like a woman, I'm complicated. No, it's a whole bunch of things for me. Everybody's depression is different, and everybody's journey is different as well. And it's important to realize that there is no cure-all. Everyone's on their own journey, and
you start to learn to swim, and you just decide you don't want to stop swimming.
Just keep trying different stuff until you find the thing that works for you.
Taylor, look at my dog.
Exercise, pets, family. One thing we haven't talked about, which has come up in the chat a couple of times, which is kind of a bit left field, is gut health, microbiome stuff. There's actually some really interesting research that links the bacteria that are in your guts to mental health and acne, interestingly enough, as well. Take probiotics, eat yogurt, eat well. It's actually surprisingly effective. It actually made quite a difference in my life a couple of years back when I started taking a little probiotic thing every day. I have far fewer of those random days when I just wake up and feel like death warmed over and I'm extremely sad for no reason at all. I still have those days every now and then, but they're a lot fewer and further in between. And you'll also have much firmer shits as well, which is...
So Mark, I can endorse that as well. I took probiotics for a while. I actually think I may have taken them too much at one point. I had to equal back out, but also one of the things that I did was, this was many years ago, cut out sugar, and that helped tremendously. Because what sugar does is it will take you on the high, which is good. Yeah. But then you have the crash, and your mental state, if you're already susceptible to that, will follow.
Yeah. Well,
I might have to take all of your advice on that, because I can tell you, I eat horrible, and Chad actually knows this, but about a month ago, I almost had a heart attack. So, I pretty much have changed my diet, and I can honestly say that I feel better. But not only do I feel better physically, but I feel better mentally as well. So I think that does have some effect in that. But with that being said, I think like one of my final statements about all of this is going to be that don't be afraid to go to a medical professional and talk to somebody. It took me a long time to get to that point, and a lot of nagging from my wife and my wife's doctor to get in to actually, get some of this stuff resolved. But she was the one that actually, said, hey, with some of the stuff that you've got going on, sometimes depression can set in, and maybe we'll get you started on something. And at first I was hesitant, whatever, but I finally agreed, and it, it's one of those things that throughout my entire life, I've on again, off again had medications for depression and anxiety. But I sometimes it would do okay, and then it wouldn't do okay, and then I'd just give up on it. And, over a period of, 15, 20 years, just kind of added up, and I got to that point where it's like, I'm tired of trying new stuff, and I kind of gave up. But it was that willpower to try again that kind of got me back on the horse. And I think it's an ongoing battle that will always be, I'll always want to give up because I'm my own worst enemy. But in the same sense, I need to be proactive and try to do something about it, and listen to people that care about me. And, sometimes when I don't realize that I'm that bad off or in a funk, that, they see it, that I go and reach out for that help. So I think that's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, talk to medical professionals, and seek that professional help.
In Australia, you can actually get, if you go to GP, you can get something like 12 sessions with a psychologist for free over a year. So you can get onto a program. where you can have regular counselling sessions, and it's well worth doing if you.
Well, I feel like I've sort of gotten over the hump myself, but I'm still going to see a psychologist because what harm can it be to talk to a professional? And I'm feeling like a lot better. But I mean, hey, if I can learn something, if I can learn better techniques,
you're going to do this as well.
Yeah, exactly. So a bit of humility and owning the fact that you're not perfect goes a long way.
Yeah.
You show me a perfect person, I'll show you a liar.
Yeah, exactly. Out of Time FPV said, could I message you guys with questions or just another adult option? I've been having a hard time getting through high school. Out of Time FPV, I'm sure that any one of us would be more than happy to talk to you and help you out. If we're on the computer and we can reply, we're more than happy to help you guys. What I would really like to do is to do some more live feeds like this where we just talk about it and we help people just in general. And I'm just getting a gauge as to whether or not this is being helpful for you guys or whether or not we're just rambling along. But I'm pretty passionate about doing this kind of thing. Like, we're not experts. None of us are experts, but we've been through that, and we can only talk to you about our experience and give you a positive response. And if that's enough to help you or to get you through another day, then that's worth it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And
don't use this as a substitute for actual professional help as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty important to remember.
I'm a professional FPV crasher. That's about it.
Professional bullshit artist.
Yeah.
You guys in the chat that are telling this 14-year-old girl to get drunk and high, knock it off. That ain't it.
Yeah.
Dumb. Guys, it's pretty simple. And I said this to David this morning. I don't care what you say. Drugs and alcohol are not a fix. They are a Band-Aid.
No.
They don't fix anything. It's no different to you.
Compound the problem.
Yeah, that drugs and alcohol will ensure that it comes back. It's kind of like
there's that line from that song the other day. I was saying the Headless Chicken song. It said, "I used to drown my sorrows, but the bastards learned to swim."
Yeah, exactly.
That line. Alcohol is a depressant. You will feel numb and you'll feel better. Yeah, Bruce is there. Weed as well. That one's you got to be careful of as well. You know, all things in balance in life. Smoke too much and it'll encourage apathy. It'll encourage far too much.
Either way, the bottom line is, this girl just said she's 14, so knock it off.
That's not cool. I'll tell you a personal story that has to do with alcohol and depression. And when I was very, very depressed, I was drinking a lot and went out, gave my keys to somebody that was a designated driver that night, and I got so pissed drunk that I blacked out, and I came out of the bathroom at the bar, saw my keys on the table, and I got behind the wheel and smashed a $10,000 truck and hit a billboard. And I swear on my soul, the billboard said, "Don't drink and drive." Okay. I'm not joking. So yeah, you know, you don't add a depressant on top of an already depressed situation. It's just never good. But you know, especially in that sense, I personally, I lost myself in the bottle at one point in my life when I was a younger man, and yeah, it definitely took a lot away from me. But you know, when people say, "Here's your sign," that literally was the case. It said, "Don't drink and drive." So it's probably the dumbest story anybody's ever heard, but you know, it's truthful. I was in Michigan, the Jackson County Fairgrounds. There's a billboard right there at the entrance, and I smashed that truck. So
yeah, at least it was on your billboard.
Yeah, you know what? And I walked away with 3 scars on my forehead. That was it. And I was lucky, but I can tell you, you know, it's never wise to add a depressant to a depressed situation.
By the way, Bruce, I read your comment. If you want to get in contact with me personally, I'd love to talk.
Yeah, I'd love to come and visit anyway.
Yeah, I'd love to talk anyway. Bruce has been a big part of me getting back into the hobby, so love to chat. But yeah, where are we?
Yeah. Oh well, we've been rambling for a while.
We have been rambling for a while. Look, guys, I think it's time for us to just wrap this up because we've been talking for far long enough. I'd like I really would like some feedback from you guys because, I mean, this is therapeutic for me. I'm sure it's therapeutic for all the other guys on here talking about it. And I really hope that it's helping you guys in some way to either work on your depression or bad parts in your life, or develop a technique to improve on it. And like everyone suffers from it. So everyone can benefit from it, and we can learn from you as well. So if you guys are interested in doing some more of this stuff, I'd be more than happy to continue on with that. But I guess we'll probably finish up. But I guess here's an interesting thing. I'm going to ask each one of you guys for a simple little bit of life advice as to how to either tackle, fix, or work on being sad, how you tackle it each day, even if it's just something really small. And for me, I would personally go back to what I said to Sailor, where if something looks too complicated that you can't do it, break it down and simplify it until you can say yes, because it's all possible. So I'm going to pick on you next, Mark.
Oh, no, don't. I was reading the chat. I thought about it.
Okay, David, you're full of philosophy. You next.
I don't believe everything I think.
It's a good one.
That's not bad.
And what the hell are you doing there? Oh, you're about to go flying.
I was going to fly some more while you guys were talking.
Yeah. Mr. Chin, what's your bit of advice?
Don't take stuff too seriously because you won't get out alive.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You get to the point where you've got to realize that you got to find some humor in it. Otherwise, even in the worst of situations, you've got to look for the bright side. There's always a flip side to it. There's two sides to a coin. So if that's possible, even in the worst situation, find it, because it's the only way you'll get out alive.
Okay, Mr. Life Advice Giver Kappa, it's your turn now.
I think I'm going to reiterate the thing that I've probably said to Chad 20 times over the past 2 years. The stuff you put out there comes back no matter what. So if you're depressed and you kill someone, they're still dead. So whatever you do, there's no excuse. Like you might be depressed, you might be struggling with something, doesn't matter. You deal with it. It's all your problem. Yeah. So if you get that through your head, you can't blame other people. And if you can't blame other people, that means you got to deal with it. And, so some days the way that I deal with it is I do the bare minimum just to get through the day. So I don't put anything out there that's going to come back and bite me. So if I know that I'm going to be toxic or negative or whatever, and it somehow impacts somebody negatively, and I don't have to talk to that person, I don't have to interact, then I don't, and that's the thing I try to get out to people that have those ups and downs and deal with depression. Like, don't put the stuff out there you don't have to, because it will come back around. And Chad, you're about to enter a phase of, you've righted yourself, but the stuff that has occurred prior is still going to come back. And most likely you're going to have multiple things come back on a day when it's flaring up, and it's going to suck. And that's where I try to tell you, I'm a phone call away. Mark's close. Yeah. Reach out to somebody that understands, and we'll talk you off the ledge, because it will happen. I promise you.
All I can say is bring it on. You gotta own your stuff, right and wrong. Right. Life's not meant to be easy all the time. Bring it on.
I admire you, Chad. Thank you.
I'll be there for you. So I guess my little nugget is just perspective. Try and keep perspective in all things, perspective on what's happening in your day, what significance your problems, which are this big in your head, might be in the grand scheme of things, probably tiny. Perspective on where the other people around you are coming from. Yeah, that's a big help for me. Constant perspective check. What have I got to be thankful for? What have I got to be depressed about? Doesn't stop you being depressed, even if you come up with nothing, but it sort of helps. So everything helps. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that is finally it, unless there's anything huge there in the chat.
Right. Sailor, I hope you're feeling a little bit better. I don't think you're an FPV person and you've stumbled into a strange space, but I hope it's been something that's helped and you realize that actually you're not alone. Plenty of people you can talk to, and plenty of people that will have a lot of experience, and can offer you some advice, even if it's just to say, yeah, I get that. I had this and this was shit and I got through it. It's, you know, an enormous amount of help when you hear that. Just knowing that someone else has been through the same sort of crap. Oh, there's this great quote. There's this movie called Two Hands. It's an Australian film. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it just because it's an awesome film. But I'll see if I can remember the quote. So the movie starts off with this dead guy, and he's crawling out of hell. He's dug this tunnel, and he's trying to dig out of hell, and the camera zooms in from a long way away, and it's like in the center of the earth, and he's like pulling all these rocks down, and then he just stops and sort of sighs and turns to the camera and he goes, if you're going through some sort of shit in your life, chances are someone else has been through there before. They've been through exactly the same kind of crap. Some poet or philosopher. And when you find that one piece of writing that just makes you stop and go, geez, this bastard's just summed it all up. It's kind of comforting. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's well worth watching this film.
Good. Well, on that note, I think we should probably end this. I will just finally say that I hope you guys have got something out of this. Yeah. And Sailor, we're thinking of you. All those people out there, I hope we have helped you in some way. Guys, just put the effort out there to help people. Everyone deserves a little bit of help, and that's something that I've had to learn over time myself, and it's going to be an ongoing process to remember to be positive to other people and continue on with it. But I really hope you guys have got something out of this, and I want to thank all of the other guys that have come on here, especially guys like Chad Capper. I know it's pretty late where you are now.
Good to see you guys again.
Appreciate you staying up late for this, and yeah, if you guys want to do some more of this, I'm very keen just to chat more about this over time, and we can probably sort of like compress it down or something like that. But in the meantime, thank you for everyone for being involved in this, and let's get out of here and have a good sleep.
You need sleep.
Group hug.
Thank you, guys.
Group hug. All right, thanks, guys, and we will catch you later.